Masculinity means when a person is buff, aggressive, and stubborn.
Know when it's your turn to take control, when it's your turn to take a back seat. Masculinity to me means many things. One, yes, the physical stuff, but also it's mentally being able to be a leader and being able to take control when control is needed, but also not to abuse it.
What role does gender play in your profession so far?
So I would like to divide my answer into a few parts to that question. I was born and grew up in Thailand, where the social norms regarding gender and sexuality is quite different from here. I would say that I didn't grow up with the expectation for women to become extremely successful in whatever career she takes. I think more expectations would be on women becoming a housewife or a mother, a good mom, taking care of children, and stay at home. That's what, like, in the popular soap opera, that's how, like, women are portrayed. When I went to college, I don't think there was a lot of gender expectation for women to become certain major or take certain careers. So I would say that it has become more gender neutral. Now I'm transitioning to a real world. I've heard from my documentary filmmaker professor that less than 5% of the successful documentary filmmaker are actually female. So I'm nervous but also excited to accept the challenge.
If you're in an altercation with a perp or a criminal of opposite sex, how aggressive would you say on a scale from 1 to 10 you are?
Well, it all depends on the what the female would be doing. If she's let's say robbing a bank, gender for a second goes out the window. If she's just having a dispute over a parking spot, then it's handled differently.
What role does gender play in your profession?
Well, I'm an occupational therapist, and as an occupational therapist back in the 1980s when I was going to school, most occupational therapists were female. There were no males in our graduating class. I went to LaGuardia Community College and then furthered my education at New York State Downstate University. And during that time, at the end of the 80s, there were maybe 2 males in a graduating class of over 400. So there weren't that many males, and males did not come into the profession until the end of the 90s, in the beginning of the new century, and that's when males started to come into the profession of occupational therapy. But it's still, even at this point right now, males don't even equal the amount of females that are occupational therapists.
So would you say that you would say this is a pretty female-dominated profession?
Yes, and the only reason why I think it is because as an occupational therapist, we meet 2 sort of roles. We gear our profession to physical dysfunctions as well as psychiatric dysfunctions, and we provide care. And I think more women tend to be more nurturers of care than men. Not to say that men aren't nurturers, but I think more women are guided to this profession of occupational therapy.
Okay, so my second question is, if you, like, in your work environment, does gender have a big toll on how you interact with people, or is it positive, negative?
Again, it really, being a police officer, I've been a police officer 9.5 years, so I've seen quite a lot of different scenarios. I've even seen the same scenario at different levels. So it really all depends on the person. We're kind of reactive when it comes to the fact of dealing with the public. So again, like I said, if somebody's arguing over a parking spot, we'll try to handle that that in any job at the minimum level that it takes to handle that job. Again, like I said, let's say you have a female and she's fighting another female, and let's say you try to separate her and she turns and fights you. You have to handle that appropriately. There's stages when we're taught in the police academy on how to handle certain physical threats. So we're allowed to have one level up, if that makes sense. So if she's fighting with her hands, we can use OC spray or a baton to subdue her and to place her in handcuffs. And then if it escalates from there, then we have other means that we go with that. But always we're allowed to have one level of resources.
How does, what are some stereotypes that you face in your everyday life about, your gender and how your gender plays a role in your life? Like, you can't do this because you're female.
I think just what I said, that about when you asked such an important question of what the definition of femininity and masculinity. Years ago, growing up, and our generation, not in your generation, you're so lucky to be in the generation that you're in. We defined femininity as soft, and I looked at women as being soft and more nurturing and caregivers, and where men were the going out there and being the providers and being strong and stuff. So that has changed, and now in this new generation, and you could see, like we just saw on the news, where you have women who are now dominating the fire department, and you have women who are dominating the police department, and you have women who are now in the profession as lawyers and doctors, and those were professions that women kind of didn't go towards. And so now women have a chance to challenge themselves, and I think even men have a chance to sit back and say, well, you know what, a woman can do this, or I could now, maybe as a man, I want to be a seamstress, and I didn't want to do that before because it was more of a dominated field for women. So I think in the generation that you guys are in, you have this ability to see such beauty and things that women do as well as men.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
How would you define masculinity in your job and in general?
Masculinity specifically?
Yeah.
I think my understanding of it would be that there are certain social expectations for men to behave in a certain way, either in or inside or outside of workplace.
General.
In my job, I think because I'm still new to the field, I would say that I would expect things to be treated more gender neutral, meaning I wouldn't expect men to say, carry the camera for me or be like the leader in whatever documentary film project that I'm in, but we will see in reality.
How would you define masculinity? If you would give a definition to go in the world, well, if you would just give a definition to go in the dictionary about masculinity, what would you say?
Wow, that's a really difficult question, because I'm not sure how I would define masculinity. I think earlier in my life I would have defined masculinity as being strong, but now I wouldn't define masculinity as being strong, because you see so many strong women out there. So I guess I would just define masculinity as being a man. Only men can have the trait of masculinity. So I guess, and that's really not an answer to your question, but that's the best way that I can answer it.
Is that likewise for femininity?
Right, and earlier in my life, I would have defined femininity as soft and sweet, but now, you know, I would not even define femininity with those sort of terms. I guess, you know, femininity is just what makes is a woman, and we and our different body parts, and I think that's what makes femininity and masculinity.
All right, and my final question to you is, how would you define femininity in your job and in general?
So again, my understanding of femininity would be like this social expectations for female to behave in a certain way. In a more traditional way, that might mean that women pursue less of a career, but take charge of domestic work. But in terms of the career, I would say that certain female personality could be really beneficial in women's career. For example, tendency to be more emotional or tendency to be more empathetic. I think that could really bring value to workplace where there could be conflicts in negotiations.
All right, that's it. It was fun having you asking questions. Thank you.
Thank you.